Welcome to Refined Resilience. I'm your host, Carrie Hill, and on this podcast, we highlight the small moments that shape our journey toward greatness and remind us that resilience isn't linear. Each episode features stories of perseverance and the little victories that often go unnoticed, illustrating that resilience is about finding strength in everyday life. I am so excited to be here with you today, and I couldn't be happier than to welcome my good friend, Heather Nemelka. She is the founder and CEO of Elevare and Elevare Foundation, dedicated to helping mothers return to the workforce with confidence through training, mentorship, and community support. Drawing from over 20 years in leadership and marketing, as well as her personal journey of re-entering the workforce as a single mom of 5, Heather created Elevare to empower women during their career transitions. She also serves as vice chair of the Silicon Slopes AI chapter and serves on the board of Bear River Mutual. I didn't know that. Heather graduated from Brigham Young University with a BA in communications and an MBA, and she loves being a mother to her 5 kids and 1 needy cat.
This is true.
I believe that's probably the most needy member of your family.
100%, no doubt.
Heather, it's so fun to be with you today.
It's time.
So yes, it is time. So just to recap for the audience, Heather and I have known each other for, oh my goodness, 6 years?
6 years.
I feel like 6 years. We started working at Vital Smarts, which is now Crucial Learning, around the same time. And our paths were so fast at Crucial Learning, like maybe with 3 or 4 months there together in different like teams. And one of our mutual coworkers said, you should really sit down and talk with Heather. And we had this training. Do you remember that?
Yes,
we had
totally
a training, and we sat next to each other and just was like, oh, I don't even remember what the training was about. Sorry, Crucial Learning.
That's true.
But our side conversation was amazing.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we were in similar circumstances and just connected, and I needed you, and I needed your voice. And since that point in time, there are many, many women who have needed your voice and your story.
Thank you.
So for anyone that is listening that doesn't know you, Heather, tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up at, what your story is,
Sure.
Early years.
Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan and Ohio, and I left Ohio to move to Georgia. And somebody I remember saying, you're so lucky you get to move. And I was super upset and frustrated. And I said, why? And they said, because you can become whoever you want, because you're moving to a new place. And so as a teenager, that was very formidable for me. And so moved to Georgia. And then things just took off from there as far as helping me develop confidence just in that process, because I had to kind of reinvent myself, and it allowed me to be more outgoing. And so did student government, and I grew up with 5 brothers and a sister. They were super encouraging. And I knew I wanted to go to BYU. So I went to BYU, did communications, thought I wanted to go into broadcast journalism, but then realized that that wasn't really something that I wanted to do, for a long period of time. So I just decided to focus on advertising. Had children pretty early on, and moved to the East Coast and then back to Utah to support my husband. And then we ended up getting divorced 10 years ago. And I had to return to the workforce after being out of it for 18 years. And so I'd had 6 years of work experience before being out of the workforce. And it was scary and hard and difficult. I cried a lot, and but a lot of people believed in me. And so I borrowed their confidence until I had my own. And I, got into tech, and I really have developed a lot of love and passion for tech. And in the process, I kept having all these women asking me, how do you get back into the workforce? I want to get, a job. How, can you help me? And so I would help them with their resumes, help them interview, help them build confidence. And over time, it just became very evident that this was needed. Some program or somebody to take on the mission of helping women return to the workforce after a career break.
Yeah.
And so about a year ago, that's when I decided it was time. So that's where I am.
Girl, that was that literally was a whole life. Like 3 minutes. That was really impressive. I wish I could summarize my life that quickly. couple things that I really appreciate about you, Heather. Number one, and I think I appreciate them because I feel like I have them in common. So I grew up in the military. So we moved
a lot,
all over, you know, and you do have to reinvent yourself. And it is a beautiful gift.
Oh, it is. You don't think it is at first, but then you realize it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do get to, if you have a bad experience at one school, you can go to another school and have an amazing experience. Totally. You know, and so my confidence, I think, also came a lot from moving around and just having to be adaptive and flexible. You know, and when we think about resilience, and the two of us, we've had a lot of conversations, late night conversations too, about how we're being resilient in the moment. And so for me, my friend Stephen Kotler says it's adaptable flexibility, you know, something like that. Okay. Like it's you're just flexible, right? Resilience is it's not a destination, right? It's a continuous pivot, right? And so for us growing up and moving around a lot, you know, how did you pivot in those moments?
Yeah, I remember, I mean, at first I didn't like the moving part. And then I realized, wow, like I made new friends. I got to be a different person. And I think sometimes when you're faced with something that you have no control over, you just have to make the best of it. And I grew up watching the movie Pollyanna, and I love
Pollyanna.
That movie. and I relate to her about like always looking on the bright side and what are the good things in front of you instead of always thinking, okay, this is so terrible. This is so hard. And my parents really helped instill in me a lot of positivity. And so even when things were challenging and hard, because I didn't grow up with very, very much. Like we didn't have a lot of money. I grew up with neighbors, hand-me-downs, and just, you know, being one of 7 kids, we just didn't have a lot of money to go around. And so my parents were always like, well, but you know, you don't have this, but you do have that, or you can't do that, but you can do this. And so it was always looking at the bright side. And so I think I developed a lot of that resilience from just having like hard things that obviously had a good side too. Like I could always see the positive side when things were challenging and hard. Yeah,
you're really good at that. I feel like you're good at, I don't want to say bouncing back, if you will, but you're good at bouncing forward.
Oh, I like that.
Quickly,
bouncing forward.
You know,
I like that.
You're that's one thing that I've really grown to appreciate about you is that you can have your moment and you can sit in that moment and then you just say, okay, moving forward. Right. And I love that. And I do think having those opportunities when you're growing up, we didn't have a lot of money either. So you know. So I know you're Salvation Army, thrift stores. That's where we got our clothes from. Garage sales. Oh yeah, girl, you know, 6:00 in the morning, mom was like, come on, we got to get the good stuff.
Get your allowance. You know?
Like, let's go find your senior picture clothes. You know? And so I feel like there's such a wisdom in that lifestyle because you really learn to savor the things that you have, and what was old to somebody else is new to you.
100%. Like I would get a garbage bag of clothes from my neighbor across the street from his cousin, and she was an only child, and it would be full of all these wonderful cute outfits. And to me, they were brand new and it was fun. And to her, they were old and castaways. And I think also too that the part that I loved also was this compassion that I built up for other people who didn't have either.
Yeah,
you know, if you grow up not having, you recognize what it's like when you see other people that don't have either, and you just can put your arms around them and appreciate them for who they are because you also come from a similar background.
Yeah, Brandy Vega, in our conversation, she said, you know, if you know, you do. If you know, you know, right? Yeah. If you know what that feels like, then the next logical action is that you care.
That's so true.
Right? Yeah. Because you've experienced that empathy and then it builds. So for you, Heather, you know, being in these kind of pivotal situations and changing who you are and growing up more confident, I'm assuming with every pivot I did.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, and then you fast forward, you go to college. It sounds like things were pretty good for you. And then we get to this point where now you're a mom and you're putting your spouse through school.
Yep.
And again, another touch point for us. I think a lot of women are in that exact same situation, and we dedicate our whole selves to our kids. Yep. Was there ever a time in that journey where you felt you'd lost yourself a little bit?
Well, I think as women, when you become a mother and you become a full-time mother, in order to give it your best and be all in, you almost have to put your hopes and dreams in a box and put it on a shelf. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself that I didn't want to be halfway in. And I grew up with a mother that was a stay-at-home mom and full-time and devoted everything to us and made cookies after school. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to give that to my children. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't realize is what I was sacrificing, both emotionally and just personally within myself, that by actually saying goodbye to that part of me, that ambitious, driven side of me that I'd always had growing up, mm-hmm. but I put aside once I became a wife and mother, I actually lost some of myself in that process, and that I gave up part of my spirit, part of my soul. Mm-hmm. And I think women who become full-time mothers, it's such a noble calling and so important. And I love it. And I wouldn't have changed that for the world. Mm-hmm. But I think now looking back, it's really important to keep some of your identity so that when you do decide that you're going to, go back into the workforce, or you have to go back into the workforce, you haven't lost yourself completely. And you're not like, I don't know who I am anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I like. And that is the one thing that I loved being able to support my husband in his hopes and dreams. And I loved supporting my children in their hopes and dreams, but I forgot about me. Mm. And then when your kids are either all in school or out of the house and you have more time for yourself, it's a really scary place to be, because you're like, it's almost shameful. Like you're shamed that you let yourself get to that point of you don't know who you are anymore. Mm. And so if I had it to do it all over again, I would have kept some of myself instead of going all in.
Yeah. But Heather, we also grew up in a different time. I mean, totally. My oldest is 23. Your oldest is
29 almost.
Yeah. So 30 years ago, we didn't have all of the fantastic entrepreneurial tools, if you will, to excel or even stay at home and keep something on the side for ourselves, Yep. So it was challenging. If you wanted a job, it was, you actually have to go to a physical location
yep.
and have a job. And how practical is that when you're raising 5 kids?
Yeah.
Right. So for you, what did you do, Heather, at the moment? What was the moment that you realized, wow, I don't really know who I am right now?
Well, when I had to go back into the workforce and I got my job working at KT Tape, I was just so grateful because I just needed a job. And I was doing it. And as I was doing it, I was like, I just took this job because I needed to get something. But what do I really like to do? Like what makes me excited? Where do I? And I remember somebody saying, like, what are your hobbies, Heather? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I had to really think, and I couldn't come up with something. Like I really couldn't. I mean, I like to play the piano. I like to write music. I like to sell on eBay. I like to travel. But that just, I don't know. It rang hollow for me. Mm. And but it was during this process of starting a new job, and I realized, I don't really know who I am anymore. And so it's been a journey.
Yeah.
To where I am now.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that for me personally, I had this realization a couple of months ago, actually, all this time, it's interesting what hits you at different times in your journey, but I was thinking about my journey. I was just doing some reflecting, and I thought, who was I? Who was I before all of this? Who was I before being a mom? Who was I before being a spouse? Who was I before being divorced, right? Who was Carrie? And the realization that I had, which I don't know, Heather, may be similar for you, is all of this struggle that you carry around, the self-doubt and the frustration, especially when you go through divorce. And now you really do have to completely reinvent yourself. You tend to say that who you are is, you associate who you are with what you've been through.
Oh, true.
Versus who I was organically, innately, without any of that.
The challenges that you went through or anything.
Yeah. You just put those aside, and all of a sudden you can rediscover, oh yeah, I like having fun.
Fun? What is that?
Right? Like, oh yeah, I like reading. Oh, I like people. Right? Yeah. Like that process of just putting down everything that you carry around.
Yeah.
And to reconnect with yourself. So for you, Heather, in this journey, that you've been on, and you're doing it beautifully, by the way. And I love that you are doing it in advocacy for other women, because I think we're very similar in feeling the need to give to other women so that they don't have to experience the things that we've been through. And so, for you, what have you learned about yourself over this journey as you've had multiple jobs, multiple careers, tried multiple hats on? What is the thing that has resonated with you the most and given you that reconnection with yourself?
I love that question. I think what I've learned in this process is how much energy I get from other people. Mm-hmm. And when I wasn't yet in the workforce, because I was with my kids and doing a lot of family things, I lost that energy just by the sheer nature of being, more at home and doing things, certainly with the school and stuff. But that energy I lost. And it was in the process of being in the workforce and having different jobs and careers and things like that, and getting to meet people in school and stuff. All of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I feed off of other people's energy. And that's what gives me excitement and passion and happiness. And it wasn't until I started going to more networking events and just events in general, both with my job and just in the community, I realized, wow, I have missed that part of me that used to get super excited, just on fire to be in front of people or talking with people, making new friends, making connections. And I guess with introverts, that's something that would be the last thing they'd want to do. But for me, I'm like, yeah, choose me, pick me. I want to be that person that meets new people and has that the connection. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of when I realized I started doing more in-person activities, events, and things like that. And I realized, I really build and it builds me to have that energy with other people.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that. And it reminds me of this podcast that I was listening to. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact podcast, but the content was really impressionable on me. And one of the things that they were talking about was your body, the cues, right? The quiet cues that you give with your body language, and whether or not you exude confidence, and what actually is the process of somebody building confidence. And you can watch their body language change.
Interesting.
As they build confidence, And so for you, I think because confidence is such a huge part of it's your whole program, right? In helping women to rebuild confidence. One of the things talking about energy in people that they were talking about in this podcast was, they did a survey of really popular kids at a high school. And they said, what actually makes people appear to be more confident is that they like other people. They genuinely like other people. So they're walking down the hall and they're like, hey, Tom, hey, Mary, hey, Sue, and they just, and because other people feel like they've had some attention from somebody that just genuinely likes a lot of people, their confidence increased. Like then, it was immediate, right? Physically immediate. They stood a little taller, they smiled. It was so fascinating. So, you talking about being around other people, and Heather, you're everywhere. You are networking everywhere in this, in Utah County and Salt Lake County, and people know you. And I want to ask you if you feel like you are an introvert that is trying to be extroverted, or if you are just, how do you define you? Because I would never say that you're an introvert.
I don't know that word. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I am not. I have a son who's an extroverted introvert. So I know that persona.
Yeah.
I remember being in 5th grade. And actually, before 5th grade, there was a competition in our elementary school, and it was a speech contest. And only the 5th graders got to participate. And I remember being a young, 2nd grader, and looking forward to when I could be a 5th grader to participate in the speech contest. And I thought about what would I talk about and things like that. And they changed the topic every year. And finally, I'm a 5th grader, and I get the chance to, be a part of the speech. And there was a girl that I was competing with, and we were really good friends. And the topic was, what makes your family so special? And I thought to myself, I'm probably the only one that has 5 brothers and a sister. And this in and of itself is going to be very, surprising. It's going to make people, want to listen. But I remember getting so excited to be able to be on a stage in front of the entire school and give my speech. I don't ever remember being nervous. I don't ever remember thinking, oh, what if I forget? What if I was just so excited.
Yeah.
And that has served me, those feelings have served me well when I'm in other instances, because instead of feeling that nervousness and scared, and like, it's excitement for me, it's energy. And so to your point, when you get to move and you get to make new friends, I got really good at, someone gave me great advice. They said, use everybody's name when you see them, because using their name makes them feel really good. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. So when I would go to these new schools, as soon as I would learn someone's name, I would say, hi, Jim, hi, Mike, hi, Steve, whatever. And that made a difference. And I didn't ever realize that maybe they were also building confidence in themselves when I was saying that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes. Well, and you're doing that with your program. Like the whole point of your program is to, if I'm understanding it correctly, because I haven't been able to go to your course yet,
You're so
but
busy.
I know that it's amazing. But yeah, I feel like for you, Heather, it's really important that you also instill this in other women, not
100%.
just to go back to work in, but just because sometimes, wow, we've been through a lot of stuff in our lives. And when we have to make that transition for whatever reason, right, back into the workforce, and we've been so comfortable, or we've been out of the workforce for so long. For me, that was, if I hadn't have had some soft skills that I could leverage into some career, right, I don't know that I would have felt confident going into I know I wouldn't have. Not because I'm not a confident person, but because I know that I don't have the skills. And I think there's a difference between being not, unconfident and just not having the skills.
Yeah.
So, when you give somebody that tool and they believe they can do it, they just can't bridge the gap, and you're bridging that gap for them. It's so powerful. And so I love that you're taking the time to know these women by name, and you do say hi to everybody, and you do wave to her, and you do know everyone's names,
Well, it's hard though. As you get older, you forget names. That's the one thing. It's like,
well, I'm only 30. I don't know about you. But
27.
Again, I've been this age for a long time. We look really good.
I love it.
But I really appreciate the work that you're doing in this capacity, and being excited to help women, and being excited to be on stage and give them what you have learned. So I want to go back to that moment where you actually had to go back to work.
Okay.
Because we can be confident. And again, if we don't have the skills and they're not matching with our confidence, we just kind of feel stuck. Totally. Right? We don't know which way to go. And I think a lot of women feel that way. Yeah. So for you, Heather, what was that experience like? What did you have to do, or what was your process for transitioning from full-time mom, wife, to divorced single mom, doing it literally all on your own financially?
Yeah.
Because that was my experience too.
It was so scary. When we were going through the divorce, there you do a financial reconciliation, as you know, and our financial situation was much worse than I knew it was. And so I was going to have, and what I realized is that I was going to have to go back into the workforce even if we didn't get a divorce. Like it was that bad.
Yeah.
And there was a point in time when I was in charge of all our finances. And then when the stock market crashed in 2007, 2008, I gave it, back to my husband, and I was just like, it's just too stressful. And so I was not as close to it as I should have been. And so when I realized our finances were what they were, and I was going to have to return to the workforce, I thought, no one's going to hire me. Like I have a college degree in advertising and communications, and now everything's digital. I don't even know how to do a digital ad. I don't know how to do Outlook or Microsoft, PowerPoint or Excel or any of these technical tools, not coding, but just literally technical tools. And I thought, people are not going to want to hire me. No one's going to want to hire me. And so I thought, okay, who will hire me? And I thought, well, last job I did was I was the assistant to the CFO of Time Warner, back before it was Warner Media. And I thought, well, I did, office management. I was his assistant. I'll try to get some secretarial type jobs. And I applied probably to 80, and I didn't hear back from any of them. And I lost confidence. Like I had no confidence before then, but can you imagine how resilient and confident I felt after that? I was like, no, there's no way. No one's going to hire me. But I was desperate. I had to pay the bills. Like I couldn't not have a job. And so I'm really down on myself. And I was talking to my brother, and just letting him know, I don't know that I can get a job. And he's like, well, I know some people in the area that I can introduce you to, and maybe they can give you some advice and kind of, and I also said, I remember saying to him, I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
And I don't know what I could do. That was the other thing. It's like, I have a degree, but I don't know what I'm capable of. And so he helped me set up this interview with KT Tape to do an informational interview. And during that process, the founders just asked me, you know, what do I like? What do I not like? What kind of things do I, you know, understand? What do I know? And in that process, it helped me kind of develop, okay, what could I do? Could I do this? Could I do that? And at the end of that process, they asked me if they could make some introductions at some other local companies. And so I said that would be great. And so that was the intention when I left. And then they ended up contacting me and asking me if I would be their marketing coordinator.
Oh, so okay. So tell me about that. So why do you think that they made a different choice about you? What was the pivot for them?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I ended up taking my former boss. He was the chief marketing officer and one of the co-founders of KT Tape. I ended up taking him to lunch not too long ago. And I asked him, I said, Jim, you know, what was it about me that gave you confidence to, you know, hire me? Like I had no job experience in marketing. How could you think to hire me as a marketing coordinator? I had no experience in this, you know, capacity. And he said two things. I could tell you were smart and you were hardworking. I could tell that because you were smart, you would be able to figure it out. You would learn, you would get on Google and you would learn and figure out the things you didn't know. And because you were hardworking, you would put in the time. You would get the work done. And he said half of that, like that, sometimes that's just half the battle, is being able to hire someone who's willing to learn, figure it out, and then actually do the work. And I found that so interesting because when I returned to the workforce, I never in a million years would have said I was smart. Never. Even though I had a college degree. Yeah. I would have said 100% I'm hardworking. Right. No doubt about it. But smart? Yeah. No, my brothers are smart. My husband, he's smart. Other people are smart, not me. And after that, it was like, oh my gosh.
Well, who's smart now?
Yes, I am smart.
Fast forward, woo, polish that off, girl.
But yeah, I mean, it was just such an interesting journey to rediscover who I am and who I always was. Like, that's the thing that's so comical, is that I looked at myself and I thought, I just didn't have that confidence or the capacity to even think that I could take on things that I didn't know how to do. And the reality is like with Google and so many other tools out there, you can figure things out. And I just wish I had had that confidence from the get-go, but I'm so glad that others had it in me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. And honestly, like, I am forever grateful to Jim Jensen of KT Tape for giving me a chance and helping me learn and grow and make mistakes and be patient with me. And if there's anything I could ask like businesses or hiring managers is give people, not just women, but people that you aren't 100% sure about hiring, like, well, I think they could, but just give them a chance, because when people are given a chance, that loyalty, that I'm going to prove to you that you didn't make the wrong decision and you took a chance on me and I'm going to reward you, that pays dividends.
Yeah. Well, and especially for single moms. Oh, yeah. Or moms that have to be working, right? Whether even if they're married, but they have to be working. It's like, I will lay down on the train tracks for you. Yeah. Because you gave me a chance, because I know that I didn't have all of the skills that I needed, but you were willing to take the risk. And so I'm here and I'm loyal to this company, right? Yep. That was I'll never forget, Heather, just like you won't forget this experience. I'll never forget that first experience of being hired at Neaters after being on welfare. Oh, wow. And I was still married at this time. And so I was similar to you. I had to go back to work because the financial situation was so bad. And I'd been out of the workforce for, 16, 17 years. And that first opportunity, I'd gone on hundreds of interviews, and I just walked away thinking, well, whatever, it's just like, whatever, but what I learned from the process of going to those interviews was perseverance and it was confidence, because then it was like, oh, I'll show you. I love that. You want to keep telling me no? Oh, I'll show you. I'll go find a yes. right? I'm going to find the yes. And so the perseverance of that built my confidence over time, so that by the time I got to Neaters, it was like, you know, that book, do you remember the author that we saw at Crucial Learnings conference, The Rejection Proof?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I cannot remember your name, author, but you're amazing. But we've read, so that book really, that author's story really stayed in touch with me. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, please go find it and then tell me the author's name. I'm so sorry. But it was an amazing speech because he said, you know, he put himself in positions to be rejected simply so that he could build that confidence. And that was my story too. And I think for you, it seems very similar. And so Heather, when you're teaching, and we're going to stay in the women bucket for a minute because that's who you're focused on. So when you are teaching women how to build confidence, what are the basic principles that you share with them to get them off the ground?
Yeah. First and foremost, confidence requires evidence. So if you can't see the evidence of what you're capable of, it's really hard to have that confidence. Mm-hmm. And especially if you've had people telling you that you can't do something and they're just beating you up, that's even harder. So you come from a place of, a negative place. But at ground zero, so many women, and certainly the general public, have a hard time looking at what's happened in the past that should have given them confidence, or they've lost that confidence because they've been giving of themselves to other people. And all of a sudden they're like, I don't know what I've accomplished. I don't know that I can do anything. And so what I help women discover is that they have the evidence, they just can't see it. Mm-hmm. And so a number of different ways to help build this confidence is, first of all, who were you before you became a mother? Were you on the track team? Did you do, were you first chair in the orchestra? Did you learn new this and that? I mean, were you reading tons of books? And you can say, I read, 50 books in a year. Or what were some of your accomplishments? And they don't have to be, here's your award for your accomplishment, but what are some of the things that you did as a youth growing up that, built your confidence then? Certainly it's come from a place of confidence at some point. Yeah. And then over time, it either got, reduced or diminished because you've forgotten it. But trying to remember what you did in college and high school and different, activities that show you are capable of more, not just, who you are, but different things you've accomplished. So that's one place. Second thing, specifically to mothers and women, are in the household when you've been doing things with your family, what are some of the skills you've acquired being a mother? And we forget that we acquire so many skills as a mother that translate completely into job skills. So I'm thinking conflict resolution, when you're breaking up your children's fights and things like that, you're resolving conflict. Project management, where you've got your kids' projects, you've got this, Cub Scout meeting, you've got your dinner on the table, you're managing all these different projects. That is project management. Think about event planning. When you have your child's birthday parties or family reunions, you're an event planner. When you are budgeting your family finances and things like that, you're doing financial accounting and things like that. I think there's so many opportunities for women to look at what they're doing as a mother that are building their skills set and recognize that all of those skills are going to translate into job skills. You just have to look at it in a way that maybe you haven't in the past, and the value that you'll actually bring to your job. So instead of looking at the time of being away from the workforce, so this career break or career gap, looking at it as an opportunity of all the things you've learned and the growth and the empathy and the emotional, IQ that you have because you've been a mother, and what that offers to a workplace environment. And I think that's where I try to help women build that confidence and help them see, okay, here is the evidence, and help them make a list. Here are the things you've done. Have you done this? Have you done this? And then they just have this whole list of things. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize this is stuff that translates into the workforce.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that pathway, because I think too, you're also educating employers at the same time about what these skills can translate to. And to your point, if you're not giving an opportunity to exert that, you don't know. You will stay in that gap because there's no action. There's no place for you to take that confidence, right? And so for employers, my ask is please pay attention to these skills. They matter, and they will translate to teams and help you.
Well, even just like diversity of experience.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you much rather want to hire a mother that's returning the workforce that has all this life experience and certainly, like I said, empathy and communication skills and listening skills that they've developed as being a mother? Wouldn't you rather hire that person than somebody right out of college who is still figuring life out, right? And I think that's something that we don't give enough credit to is life experience.
Yeah.
And bouncing back from hard things too, and disappointment and challenges. I just think there's a wealth of knowledge and experience that comes from a mother who has been out of the workforce. And I think more companies are figuring that out, but it does take time. And as more women do return to the workplace, I think that will become more organic and natural for them. But right now they do. I mean, there has been a history of hiring managers looking at this gap and saying, what have you been doing?
Right.
But I'd like to change the narrative of, look at all this stuff that this woman has been doing. It's been for her family, managing her family and her children and, her husband supporting him. But it is amazing to be able to transfer that to you as an employer.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that tonality, Heather. I think it's, when you come, for me personally, this is my opinion. I'll just preface that. But I feel like when we come in as collaborative entities into a relatively male-dominated work environment, right? I mean, we're in Utah. I think the majority of CEOs are men, right, in our state. And so the majority of managers, and right, we are kind of male-dominated here. And so when you're coming into a male-dominated work environment as a female that has had this gap, the education that employers need, that managers need, that the other side needs in order to make this a smooth collaborative experience is equally as important. And I know that you offer some of those aspects to what you're doing in helping employers understand how valuable life experience actually is to the workforce. And so, what is your advice? Right? You just gave this beautiful advice on both sides, but specifically to our Utah space and our business world in Utah. What is something that you would say, a piece of advice that you would give to business owners about allowing space for women to come back to work?
That's such a great question. And it's not going to be immediate, but we're working hard to change the narrative. As I said, something that we're doing at Elevare is we're creating what we're calling the Elevare Academy, where it's an 8-week program that a woman could go through. And by the time they're finished, they could actually be certified. And they've met a minimum standard so that a company could hire an Elevare mom and realize, oh, I'm getting this standard. And they don't have to be nervous about, well, do they have the technical skills? Do they know these? They will have received those technical skill trainings during the program. So I think first and foremost, that will give businesses confidence. But I think also generally it's just to have businesses realize and recognize that women give there's so many advantages to having a woman that's returning the workforce in their work environment, because to the point earlier, they're going to work so much harder because you gave them a chance. The loyalty, I think, is much greater than if you were just hiring somebody that could get a job anywhere. Right. Women are desperate is too strong a word, but there is just this, just give me a chance, right? And then also just like look at the possibilities. Like what is the worst thing that could happen, and try to look at it as an opportunity to teach and grow. And all of us have a woman in our life, or a daughter in our life, or a girl that's going to be growing up. And what do you want for them? Would you want your daughter to have to be in like a situation where they're going to have bias against them because they chose to be a mother, or if they chose not to be a mother, but they're still trying to get some jobs that in a male dominated environment, like, is that really what you want to encourage? And I think companies need to feel assured that they're hiring skilled workers, which these women are. Like, that's the thing I also want to say is like, these are skilled women. These are not just stay-at-home moms asking for a handout. I'm not asking you as a company to even like just show charity. I'm saying hire a strong, capable, skilled woman. Yeah. And also to something that I recognized as I was in the workforce, I got more confidence on the job. So I might have started from a place of here. And then as I continued to realize, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Then within a year, I was promoted to manager. And I think that more women would have opportunity to be in leadership positions if companies were willing to take a chance on these mothers, right? Because if you're saying we need more women in the workforce, we need more women in leadership positions, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to get women in leadership positions unless you have a bigger pool of women to hire from.
Yeah.
So it's a process. It's going to take time. I think a lot of companies are now being willing to have hybrid situations or remote work to be able to accommodate more women, stay-at-home moms and whatnot that are now returning to the workforce. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think I just would encourage more businesses to just to take a chance, because if companies could see who I was, 10 years ago when I returned to the workforce, I'm not the same person I am today.
Yes.
But it was the confidence that other people had in me that all of a sudden pushed me to realize, oh, maybe I can do this. And I borrowed their confidence until I had confidence. And then it just grew from there. And my boss at KT Tape, oh my gosh, he gave me opportunities that I shouldn't have been given. But he just thought, I don't know, he just trusted me. He's like, I'm going to just see if you can do it. And then I would do it and they'd give me more. Yeah. And it built on itself. So and it takes time to, give these women a chance.
Well, and it takes time for you to build, I think, to something that, to build that confidence. What I would say is don't become rejection proof. Like build that build that resilience muscle, right? In the process. I think we live in a very fast paced, I need results now. You and we went to work at Sizzler and Arby, whatever, that was what we did. We didn't have an opportunity to make a TikTok video and make $300,000 in a month, it's just like, what? But that process is so significant. I think that confidence building process is so significant. It's patience, it's grit. It is what builds your adaptive flexibility, your resilience muscle, right? And so teaching these women, and for me, I would have loved to have had you in my ear for longer than I got to have you in my ear for during that period of time, because I think even when you have some confidence and then you go into a different job, you're not sure if you can do that job 100%. And you're not sure if you do that job, right? Yeah. And so to your point of just this built upon process of learning, I can do it. But you have to be patient for it. Yeah, you're not going to get everything at once. And so if your boss is willing to hire you at a lower entry-level job, take it.
Take it. I mean, right there, that's the best advice. Because I remember when I came in as a marketing coordinator, this is a job you would get right out of college.
Right.
And I had been out of college for many years.
Yeah.
It was a little...
But you're only 30. I know. You're 27.
That's right. It was bruising to my ego. I have to admit, I was like, I can't believe it. They only think I'm this good. But the reality is that is what I was capable of doing at the time and what they were willing to take a chance on me for. So, but I knew that if I proved myself that in a year, I might get a promotion, not guaranteed, but I might. But to your point, you just take the lower level job and then shine and show what you can do, and then you'll get promoted. But what you say is so right. It's a process. And I remember talking to an executive one time. She was a female executive, and she was telling me how she doubts herself all the time. Like she loses confidence, and I don't know if I can do this, and I don't know. And I thought to myself, wow, you are an accomplished female executive and you lack confidence sometimes. And what that told me was we all have periods of our life where we lack confidence, or we lack confidence in certain situations, and the context may be different. But confidence and resilience, they build on each other. And over time, you can look back and reflect like, oh my goodness, I had no confidence then, and now I have more. And then when you were talking about examples of you'll be in a new situation or a new job and you have to start kind of all over again. I think it's a wonderful thing though, because that growth is where it comes out. Corrine Clark said there's no comfort in growth and no growth in comfort. And I love that because it's true. Like if you want to grow, expect to not be comfortable.
That's right.
And if you're fine and you love your comfortable life, you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
So resilience comes in that growing period where you have given everything you have and you just are trying to have a little bit of faith that you'll be able to get to the next point and survive.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you're like, oh my goodness. But what we don't do enough is recognizing, oh, wow, look how far I've come. It's always like, I'm not, you compare yourself to others. Well, so-and-so, like they've got so much more confidence and they could do more. I think if we would just recognize how amazing we are and take wins or take the small wins and celebrate them, we would be in such a better place.
Yeah. Well, and to the point of the title of this podcast, it is to refind it, right? So you do whatever that mechanism is for you to refind whatever you need at that moment to get to the next space. It's a constant process. Because the thing that worked for you before maybe is not the thing that will work for you next.
So true.
Maybe there's different people, different environments, different challenges that you have to go through. And so I really love that you teach women to recognize the places that they have accomplished, that they have shined, that they have had confidence. Because for me, those were the things that kept me moving forward when I didn't believe that I could. It was to go back and say, but you already did that. You did this thing. So of course you can do the next thing because you already did the thing that comes before that. Yeah. So stop it. So, you slap yourself and you get off the ground and go, what is going on? Like, get going, girl. So I really appreciate, Heather, that you're doing this work. You are strong and confident. I would never think of you in any other capacity. And doing this work makes others feel the same way that you want to feel yourself, but also that you want those women to feel walking away from you. And it's so beautiful. And I want to just commend you for being an advocate for something that everybody needs. Everybody needs this.
Yeah.
And to be able to teach that in a way that people can harness it and really see where they can apply it is just really beautiful. So I want to thank you for being in this room with me and for being my friend. Thank you for bringing your light to me.
Carrie, I admire you so much. And you have such a light about you and just your positivity. And I think that's why we've connected.
Yeah.
It's because we have some similar backgrounds and hard challenges in life. And we're here to build others up, and you build me up all the time.
Oh, so even at 2 a.m.
Even at 2 a.m.
Heather, thank you so much. If we want to find out more information about Elevare, where do we go?
You can go to elevare.com. That's with 2 A's. Okay. And also you can learn more at info@elevare.com. So if you want to ask me questions, I just do this because I love to help women. And so I people reach out to me on LinkedIn all the time and just connect with me. And I'm happy to connect with your, wives, your, moms, yourself, whoever it is, who are watching this podcast and listening to it. They can take advantage of the time that I'm willing to offer. If you go to the website, there's some trainings, and we're going to be continuing to build this website over the next few months. So there will be more online and in-person workshops that other people can
And it's just Heather Nemelka on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Well, I will drop the link to your LinkedIn in the notes below. And I just want to say again, thank you so much, girl. You're taking the world by storm and it's awesome. We're going to do some good work together in the future.
We are.
I feel it. So
100%.
I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refined Resilience. We hope you found inspiration in the stories shared and the small moments that remind us all of our strength. Remember, resilience is built not just in the big challenges we face, but in the everyday experiences that shape who we are. A special thanks to our sponsor, Build Them Bless, for making Refined Resilience possible. Until next time, remember, it's the small moments of resilience that make us great.